everybody and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing my May reading wrap up. May was an interesting month. It was kind of a slower reading month for me. I graduated from my master's, I did travel a lot, and I started off the month really slow and really bad with the book that I started out with. So it's kind of a weird month. If you're new here, hi, my name is Shreya and I would really appreciate it if you could hit the thumbs up button and subscribe, and let's get started. So I started my month off with Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I had never read a Brandon Sanderson book before and I really wanted to, but I didn't want to start with a series. This is part of his secret projects, I believe. So this is a book that he wrote for fun just for his wife. It was never going to be released to the public. The public heard about it and they really supported him and they wanted him to release this book. So that's how this book came to fruition. And I have to say, at the beginning, this book is separated into parts. It's about Tress and her boy that she's in love with gets kidnapped by a witch, and she is going to set across the Emerald Sea to find him and to rescue him and to bring him home. And this world has a bunch of rules. The sea is not liquid ocean like we know it. There's a bunch of different rules, and it was really interesting to read about. So part one, I really liked it because he was setting up the scene. It was almost like a fairy tale. But then she gets on a ship and meets the crew, and I thought that she was going to spend some time with them and then move on to the adventure, but she never left the ship. And because of that, I got so bored, and it's such a shame because I do think I really like his writing and I do want to give him another chance, but 75% of this book was really kind of boring. I gave it a 3.5 stars because it was enjoyable and I really liked his writing. I hadn't read a book by a male author in a while and I want more from him, but this just wasn't really my cup of tea. Next, I read The Idea of You by Robin Lee on my Kindle. I had known that this was a movie with Anne Hathaway, so I wanted to read the book. I read it in one sitting. I will say I gave it a 3 stars because it was very much middle of the road. This is about a 40-year-old mom who meets a 20-year-old guy in a rock band or a pop band, think One Direction, and they end up falling in love and being together, and it's really messy and they're just insane pull, and it's Wattpad, basically. Like, it read very Wattpad and it was not good writing at all, but I couldn't stop reading it. And then I watched the movie after, and the movie was 10 times better. I loved Anne Hathaway in the movie, and I'm glad that I read the book because it provided a premise. I will say the ending of the movie, not to give anything away, but the ending of the movie is like a complete 180 than the ending of the book, and I actually liked it a lot better. So yeah, I would suggest it if you want a fun, silly read, but it reads like Wattpad and it wasn't anything life-changing. The next 4 books are the second, third, fourth, and fifth book of the Off-Campus series. I read The Deal in January. I think it was the first full book that I read this year, and I really liked it. I gave it a 4.5, and that one continues to be my favorite Off-Campus of all time. My best friend loves the Off-Campus book, and so she really had wanted me to read the rest, and I finally did when I was in a road trip, and I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed them all. What I will say is that they all kind of blend together because I read them one after the other. I would say that The Deal is a 4.5 stars, but the rest of the books are a solid 4-star for me. They are hockey romances and everyone's intertwined. I'm not going to go into every book individually because when we get down in the meat of it, it's really just a couple and a lot of smut. And it was good. I will say The Score, which is the third one, was my favorite that I read this month. I gave that one a 4 stars. I really liked it. I really liked the couple dynamic. I really like how Elle Kennedy really knows what her readers want. I read The Graham Effect last month. Loved that. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Even though her writing is like really smutty, like she knows what the readers want, and the writing just gives me everything that I want, and it's just funny. Like the way that the guys converse and just the way that everybody talks just reminds me and takes me back to college, and that's why I just love Elle Kennedy's books. They're light and funny, and if you're looking for a hockey romance or just sports romance, Off Campus is great, and I feel like everyone has read recommend this. So I read the entire Off-Campus series and thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a 4-star series for me. Okay, and then I read When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This book I read on my Kindle. It's on Kindle Unlimited, and it is a fantasy book that's over 700 pages, and it felt that way. I know a lot of people that I follow on BookTube read it and loved it, but something about the writing to me, like I was so confused during the first half of the book, and I like went back and tried to reread it, and then something wasn't clicking, so then I kept going, and then some parts were better, and I genuinely like should not have forced myself to finish it, but I did, and I gave this one 3 stars because some of the writing was good, some of the characters were good. It didn't feel below a 3 stars, but I didn't click with it. So basically this is about Rave, and she loses all of her memory, and she is an assassin, and the love interest is this guy that basically kidnaps her, and it's this whole thing. And I don't want to give too much away because I don't know how much of that like you're supposed to know when you go into the book, because I knew nothing, and oh my god, this book was confusing and just hard, and I think that I didn't read it in the right frame of mind. I read it right after I read the Off-Campus series, and I think I was still like in the mood for something light and fun, but this just didn't hit. So When the Moon Hatched, I gave it a 3 stars, but let me know if I should go back and read it and like actually give it another try, because I think that I should. Okay, now we're getting on to the good stuff. I read Everywhere Everything by Nicola Yoon. Oh my gosh, like I didn't know that this was a movie. I read her new YA book that came out last month, and I really liked it, so I wanted to read more stuff by her. So I got Everything, and this is about a girl that had a rare disease where she's like allergic to the world, so her mom keeps her in a bubble, and of course the guy moves in next door and she falls in love with him, but she can't like touch him or anything because she lives in the bubble to protect herself from this rare disease. And it's so good. Like it just brings me back to like the Fault in Our Stars days. I gave this one a 4.5 stars. It was thoroughly enjoyable. I was not expecting the ending. It ended so well. Like I really liked this book. I have not watched the movie, but I think maybe I will, and I really like how short the chapters are. There are like some chapters that are like you see like a picture, like it's just so fun, and I believe that her husband actually illustrated the book and the illustrations in this book, which are so adorable, and I really recommend this if you're a young adult or if you're not and you're just looking for something that's like fun and will make you think, and just I loved it. So 4.5 stars. And then that sparked a Nicola Yoon obsession, so I had to get The Sun Is Also Star by her from the library, and I gave this one 4 stars. Really loved it. This one's also a movie with Charles Melton. I think I have watched some of the movie, but I haven't watched all of it, and this one was good. So this followed Natasha and Daniel, and Natasha is about to be sent back to her country. Her full family is here illegally, and Daniel is just trying to live up to his parents' high expectations, and they're both having pretty horrible days, and they meet each other in a series of events, and the chapters are short, and I freaking love this book. I knew I was gonna love it. It reminds me of Anxious People by Frederick Backman, where it's like one thing affects something else, and we might not know how our actions affect other people, and we get to see it come to fruition, and I just love those books. I love the thought of like all of our actions have consequences, and all of our actions matter in some way, shape, or form, and you really get that with this book. So I really liked it. 4 stars. I found my new favorite author. I think she only had 3 books out, and I read them all, and I want her to release more books. I read The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. I have read One in Rome and the other one, Practice Makes Perfect, but I haven't read the cheat sheet, which apparently goes like with this book. I thought that this was like crazy because it's a pretty short book, but there's so much packed into it. So this follows Nora and Derek. They actually dated back in college, but they broke up, and it just been really hard for them to get over it, but they haven't talked for a long time. Nora is a sports agent, and she ends up representing Derek, and Derek is not happy about that, and so he tried to make her life hell, but she's trying to prove that she's a good agent to her boss. So that's the setup of the story. It was very enjoyable. The writing was funny. There were just things in this book that were just crazy. Like it was a little outlandish, and it wasn't my type of writing, and I did give this one 3.75 stars because it was a good book. It was fast, but too much happened and it was like, whoa, and I didn't get to fully immerse myself in the story, so that's why it was a 3.75. Okay, next I saw 5 Survive at the library and I had to check it out because now I have completely read all of her books, her backlist of books, and I regret reading it. I knew I wasn't gonna like it. I don't know why I do this to myself. I knew I wasn't gonna like it and I still read it anyway. So this is about a group of friends and they are driving and then all of a sudden they spin off the road and things start happening to them, and it takes place in 24 hours. Like, the book is broken up by time periods and creepy things happen and they're trying to figure out who had the secret, who it was. And Holly Jackson, the reason why I don't vibe with her books is because she puts so much unnecessary detail that I don't need to know. Like, I don't need to know and I don't care to know about half things that she writes about. Like, I just want to know about the suspenseful stuff, and she's not great at that in my opinion. So I gave this one a 3 stars because there were some parts and some endings of chapters where I was like, oh my god, this is good, but then like all of the filler in between was too long, and I'm just not a Holly Jackson girl. I know some people really are, but I haven't vibed with really anything that she has written. Okay, next I read Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan, and I love this book. Oh my gosh, I remember reading Nora Goes Off Script earlier this year and I loved it. I loved how it was short and concise, and she really knows the formula to a good romance book. So I read Same Time Next Summer and I was just as in love with this one as I was with Nora Off Script. So this is about Sam, and she goes back to the beach every single summer, and she had a boyfriend, Wyatt, when she was a teenager, and it was like all the first love thing. They were in love, but they broke up and they're both really torn up over it, but like they're over it, you know? So she is 30 years old, I believe, now in the present, and she has a fiance, Jack, completely different guy. She goes back to the beach and she brings Jack with her because they're thinking about getting married on the little island, and she sees Wyatt and all these things come rushing back, and it's a little romance and it's about self-discovery as well, and I think it's so impressive how there was such a depth of emotion and scenes and just so much going on in less than 300 pages, but it all made sense and it was perfect and I just loved it. I think I'm gonna actually go out and buy this one because this is a library book, and Nora Goes Off Script, because they're just perfect little romances and they're so unique. There's like an element of originalness in her work that I really love. So this was a 4.5 stars, really, really good. I want to briefly touch on a DNF. So this is The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett, and this is not really a DNF because I did read this for a book club 2 or 3 years ago and I gave it a 3 stars, but I don't really remember anything about it. So I saw it in the library and I checked it out, and then I read the first chapter and I just wasn't in the mood. Like, I started to remember some things about it and I was just like, I'm just not in the mood for it because it's summer and I want light and fun. So I will potentially check this out again and reread it, but I just wasn't in the mood. So if I'm not in the mood, I'm not going to read it. And then the last 2 books that I read, I actually have a reading vlog for. I'll link it down below. But I read This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune and A Funny Story by Emily Henry. I was disappointed by this one and I just didn't really connect with the characters or what was going on. I felt like I needed more of Miles, the male main character. So basically, both of them were dating other people and then those other people broke up with them to date each other, so now they moved in together and now they're dating each other. If that makes any sense, go watch my vlog to see my in-depth thoughts and reactions, but I gave this one a 3.75 stars. I feel very comfortable with that. I felt very bored at a lot of times in this book, but Emily Henry has really good quality writing, and so none of her books are bad, but I just like basically every other book of hers better. So that's what I think about that. But then I read This Summer Will Be Different and I ended out my May with a 5-star read. This was perfect. This was everything that I wanted and needed. The metaphors were so good. The language was so good. Like, everything in this book I fell absolutely head over heels in love with, and this is actually a personalized copy. She wrote my name in it and I'm so happy about it. I love this book so freaking much. Again, go watch that video. Best Friend's Bride brother. There's just a lot. Perfect scenery on an island, and it's just so good. Self-discovery, the grief in this book. It's more literary fiction, but also heavily focused on the romance. It's so good, and I highly recommend. Again, I'm not going to touch too much on this because I have a whole video. I'll link it down below, but 5 stars. Please go read this one. All right, and that was all the books that I read in the month of May. Please let me know what you read, what your favorite book was in May, and maybe I'll get around to it in June. I love you guys very much, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.